Chadian troops amass in northern Nigeria as the force prepares to fight Boko Haram. The U.S. says the Islamic State is losing ground, but remains a formidable and brutal force. And the story of an Oscar gown's disappearance unfolds like a true Hollywood thriller. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening, I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. We begin in West Africa, where Chadian troops are amassing in northeastern Nigeria as they prepare for battle against the violent militant group Boko Haram. Battle-hardened Chadian forces in heavily armed pickup trucks scour the bush in northern Nigeria, the scene of regular attacks by the Nigerian terrorist group Boko Haram in recent months. It's where Chad says it killed 207 Boko Haram militants in fighting on February 24th. It's also where the Chadian military seized large quantities of small arms and ammunition and 2 pickup trucks. 1 Chadian soldier was killed and 9 others were wounded in the clashes near Gamburu. Niger, Cameroon and Chad have launched a regional military campaign to help Nigeria defeat the Boko Haram insurgency. The militant group is aiming to carve out an Islamic emirate out of northeastern Nigeria. Nigerian President Goodluck Jonathan has come under tremendous criticism for not doing enough to drive Boko Haram out of its northern territories. But Chad's unilateral intervention on Nigerian soil ahead of the launch of a near 9,000-strong regional task force to tackle Boko Haram appears to have forced Nigeria's hand into tackling the Islamic group. Chad's economy, which relies heavily on imports from Nigeria and Cameroon, is suffering greatly from the conflict. Chadian President Idris Deby ordered the decisive action to take the fight to Boko Haram. The spirit of the Chadian troops was boosted even higher upon returning to their base in Gambaru as the soldiers paraded their seized war spoils.
It belongs to Boko Haram. The Chadian army took it from Boko Haram. For sure, because Boko Haram can have this type of weapon.
Standing before a cache of weapons captured from Boko Haram, Bamandoa said 2 prisoners had also been brought to the base. One is nicknamed the Butcher for his alleged beheading or slashing the throats of 5 people. Chadian officials say they have had no contact with Nigerian forces on the ground and that they have never fought alongside them. Boko Haram killed an estimated 10,000 people last year. Well, the attacks by Boko Haram in northern Nigeria have caused a flood of refugees to arrive in Chad in recent weeks. Many of the refugees say they got stranded for weeks on islands in the middle of Lake Chad after boarding packed boats to escape militants attacking towns and villages. More than 3,000 Nigerian refugees now live in Dar es Salaam camp in Chad, where they depend on humanitarian aid to survive. Aid workers estimate that at least 1 million Nigerians have abandoned their homes and another 157,000 have fled into neighboring countries. Chad, Niger, and Cameroon are hosting refugees from Nigeria. Well, in Eastern Africa, heavy fighting in Sudan's South Kordofan state have caused hundreds of thousands to flee. Local aid organizations estimate as many as 400,000 civilians have been internally displaced since the conflict began more than 3 years ago, while another 250,000 have fled across the border to refugee camps in South Sudan. And Adam Bales has more on another looming humanitarian crisis.
Hundreds of women and children shelter under trees in desperate conditions. More than 300 families who fled recent fighting from surrounding villages are here, now displaced with nowhere else to go. They have little food and more than an hour's walk to the closest water source. In Tolodi County, the eastern frontline village of Ongatu is destroyed. Intensified fighting last month displaced more than 10,000 people in just a few days, adding to the growing number of Nubian Sudanese displaced by more than 3 years of civil war. These people are still not safe. Though the Sudanese government denies targeting civilians, communities live in danger of continuous shelling and Antonov bomber attacks. Even here, they say they are still at risk of being reached by Sudan's government guns.
We left our homes because of the bombardment. We left everything at home. We had just a little bit of food, but have finished it. We're living without anything to eat or drink. We're living with the shelling and Antonov attacks day and night.
We have been here for 12 days. We are staying here without food and without water. We cannot sleep in the day or night because the shelling does not stop.
SPLA North rebels later took back the village, but Ungatu, recently home to 5,000 people, now lies empty. Food stores looted, houses burned, buildings flattened by shelling and bombing. Casings litter the ground from thousands of bullets fired. Mohammed Al-Sabai, Tolodi County's commissioner, says everything was burned when government troops took the village.
The civilians have been displaced because of the attack of the enemy shelling and aerial bombardment from Antonov. Ungatu was full of civilians before the National Congress Party attacked the area.
Since the start of the war, the Sudanese government has banned all international relief and humanitarian aid in South Kordofan. With this ban in place, the thousands internally displaced within Sudan's borders will receive no help. Despite this, many families refuse to leave the country. Rebel commander Aburas Kuku says if human rights were being observed here, this would not happen.
The Sudanese government is targeting civilians. If they were only fighting with the SPLA, we would not have a problem. But the thing is that they target civilians, and that is a violation of human rights. So it is unacceptable to shell and bomb civilians. That is a war crime.
In Ungatu village, SPLA North rebels walk us through what remains of the communities emptied by heavy fighting. For now, forces wait on standby. The families here do not want to leave their land, but with their homes destroyed and nowhere else to go, their future here is uncertain. Adam Bales for VOA News, Ungatu, Sudan.
Well, vote counting is underway in Lesotho, the tiny African enclave completely surrounded by South Africa. Voters are choosing a new National Assembly and Prime Minister in snap elections. Saturday's election came 2 years earlier than scheduled following an attempted coup last August that forced Prime Minister Thomas Thabane to flee. He is back in the capital, Maseru, seeking re-election while fearing for his life. At the polls, he was surrounded by armed guards. Three parties are jostling for control of the government. Mr. Thabane's All Basotho Convention, the main opposition Democratic Congress, and the Lesotho Congress for Democracy. While Burundi is facing mounting unrest ahead of its June presidential election, controversy is swirling around the president's right to run for another term. That was the topic of discussion on VOA's Straight Talk Africa program. Here's VOA's Paul Sisko.
Burundian President Pierre Nkurunziza intends to run for another third term, according to his advisors, political observers, and the opposition. But controversy has emerged because he was first elected president unopposed by the National Assembly in August of 2005 and was only directly elected by the people once in August of 2010. The Burundi Constitution currently limits a president to 2 5-year terms. Burundi's recent political situation has been one of uneasiness. Agathon Rwasa, the leading opposition candidate, says the nation's political structure is decaying.
The political environment in Burundi is always tense, and it does not show signs of improving. Rather, it may deteriorate even further.
There have been massive demonstrations in the nation's capital, Bujumbura, as the elections approach. When Burundians voted in 2010, the opposition pulled out, giving President Nkurunziza an easy victory. On the latest edition of Straight Talk Africa, host Shaka Sali asked both of his guests for their take on the controversy.
The move by the incumbent President Nkurunziza to go for another term is not necessarily illegal, but you find it perhaps illegitimate?
First, let me put one thing clear. President Nkurunziza is a member of the ruling party. When he got appointed to represent the party, it came from the General Assembly or Congress of the party. Mm-hmm. President Nkurunziza is not the one who decides that I have to run or not. The decision comes from his party. And as we talk now, his party has not yet decided on who is coming for the forthcoming presidential election.
No one should be able to run the country for more than 10 years, whether it's constitutional, unconstitutional. I mentioned earlier before, this is a legacy, a defining moment for the country.
Mm-hmm.
And that 2 months or 3 months before the elections, we're still arguing about who is the candidate, who's going to be the candidate. Shows you a problem of how dysfunctional our politics is.
While in Washington for last year's African Leaders Summit, President Nkurunziza met with Secretary of State John Kerry. Secretary Kerry said Burundi must determine its own democratic political fate, but America is ready to assist them.
It's still up to Burundi to secure the notion that elections are going to be free and fair and transparent, peaceful, but the U.S. intends to help where we can.
The United Nations Security Council has weighed in on the controversy, releasing a statement on February 19th that also stressed the crucial need for a free, credible, and peaceful process in the upcoming presidential election. Paul Cisco, VOA News.
Well, for the first time since 2011, the Mo Ibrahim Foundation has given out its award for excellence in African leadership. This year, the foundation is highlighting the work of outgoing Namibian President Hifikepunye Pohamba with a $5 million prize. Mr. Pohamba has led Namibia since 2005 and won a second term in 2009 as the country has enjoyed political stability. The prize committee praised the president for wise and sound leadership and the promotion of democracy during his tenure. Namibia's reputation has been cemented as a well-governed, stable and inclusive democracy with strong media freedom and respect for human rights. In recent years, the prize was not awarded because the foundation did not want to compromise its standards. Well, in Zimbabwe, thousands of people gathered on the grounds of a luxury hotel Saturday to celebrate the 91st birthday of Zimbabwean President Robert Mugabe. Supporters of the ruling ZANU-PF, many wearing party regalia emblazoned with the president's image, sang and danced at the famed Victoria Falls Resort. The lavish party, held at an estimated cost of $1 million, had a menu including meat of 2 elephants, drawing criticism from environmentalists that the development promotes poaching. And Mr. Mugabe spoke for more than an hour on his feet during celebrations, delivering a characteristically defiant speech in which he threatened to take over land and animal sanctuaries still in the hands of whites.
They do their own thing and pay themselves, kill animals, carry trophies with them. We don't know all that. There is no supervision, sufficient supervision. But we are now going to invade these forests.
Well, Mugabe says he will only allow whites to own animal sanctuaries if the U.S. removes sanctions imposed on him, his wife, and some members of his inner circle. Well, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered during the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. And check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Coming up, a degraded Islamic State still poses a formidable threat. So says the U.S. We'll explain why when we return. Stay with us.
Like Voice of America on Facebook. Follow VOA on Twitter. Join VOA on our YouTube channel. Like, follow, join VOA.
Welcome back to Africa 54. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry has defended Israel before the UN Human Rights Council, saying there is a clear and balanced focus on the country. Speaking in Geneva Monday, Kerry highlighted the UN's role in bringing to light abuses, but questioned why Israel is made the focus on repeated resolutions. Kerry told the council that no country on earth should be free from scrutiny, but neither should any country be subject to unfair or unfounded bias. On Sunday, Kerry sought to downplay any rifts with Israel related to an invitation from House Leader John Boehner to have Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu speak before Congress without the traditional coordination with the White House. The Israeli leader is expected to use his speech Tuesday to warn against a possible nuclear deal with Iran. While top U.S. intelligence officials warn the Islamic State remains a formidable and brutal threat, even as coalition airstrikes and fighting on the grounds begin to erode its strength. But there are also indications that the constant bombardment is starting to take a more permanent toll. VOA's national security reporter Jeff Selden has more.
A U.S. intelligence official tells VOA for the Islamic State mounting a major comeback to retake territory lost in Iraq to airstrikes and a push from Kurdish forces would, in his words, be challenging under current conditions. The official also says there are signs of dissatisfaction in the Islamic State ranks that could grow if battlefield strains increase. Still, at a Senate Armed Services Committee meeting Thursday, Defense Intelligence Agency Chief Lieutenant General Vincent Stewart remained cautious.
I think there will be a tipping point at some point. We just don't know where that will be.
And with ever-impressive propaganda, the Islamic State's careful not to show signs of any cracks. National Intelligence Director James Clapper.
What they're trying to do, of course, is to create both the substance and maybe more importantly, the image of this global-scale caliphate.
Clapper says anecdotal evidence indicates the group's brutality is wearing thin. Money is starting to run short. And despite a constant flow of foreign fighters, the group's been forced to use conscripts. Already, U.S. military officials say coalition airstrikes have degraded the Islamic State, gaining back 700 to 800 square kilometers of terrain in Iraq. But analysts like Christopher Harmer at the Institute for the Study of War urge caution.
But we shouldn't confuse tactical success with the strategic changing of the tide. ISIS still has the strategic initiative. They've reached their natural limit of expansion in Iraq. They're continuing to expand in Syria. We've done nothing to reduce their heartland territory in Syria.
For now, U.S. focus is on Iraq and prepping Iraqi forces for a campaign to retake Mosul, perhaps as early as April. Still, there are problems. It could be 6 to 9 months before Iraqi forces are ready to launch an offensive on their own. And there's the risk of putting U.S. troops on the ground.
The best propaganda victory that we could give ISIL is to make this a fight between the West and Islam.
Even with U.S. help, analysts worry the battle for Mosul will be exceedingly bloody. And then there's still the problem of the Islamic State in Syria, where intelligence officials say there are what they call a lot of gaps. Jeff Selden, VOA News, Washington.
The rescheduled Nigerian presidential election is set to be held on March 28th. The leading opposition presidential candidate, Muhammadu Buhari of the All Progressives Congress, has been speaking on what he will do to tackle terrorism and corruption if he is elected president. Here's Doris Okenua with more.
Police officers do not make regular appearances at Chatham House events. Well, this was clearly a different kind of event. News of protests were rife. General Buhari arrives early enough to beat the protesters. But the PDP contingent would not be outshined. Neither would the APC crew allow their voices drown. This was the scene in front of Chatham House during and after the conference. London's St. James's Square had quite a show. To the meeting proper now, the attention of the people in the hall and many who watched online were on the words, but perhaps more on the body language of General Buhari.
The global interest in Nigeria's landmark election is not misplaced at all. It is in our collective interest that the postponed elections should hold on the scheduled dates, that they should be free and fair, that their outcomes should be respected by all parties.
And in an interview with Channels Television, the elephant in the room is pointedly addressed.
After visiting 35 states and holding town hall meetings in Lagos, in Kano, in Abuja, and then having forced on me 6 weeks of holidays, I have to come away from Nigeria to have some relative peace. That's what brought me here.
So it had nothing to do with health challenges?
Well, they have been watching me on the television, hired me on the radio, visiting the whole country. I never had any health problem.
But we might not have heard the last of this issue, as many continue to ask why this clarification took a long time coming. But a point raised by some participants is that beyond the elections and political skirmishes, pressing issues that impact on the nation's image and its citizens persist. That would be insecurity, economic decline, among others. These issues seem largely obscure, they say, while personalities generate more attention. From London, Doris Okenwa, Channels Television News.
Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. Lupita Nyong'o's unforgettable Oscar dress continues to make news. We'll be right back.
If you've just joined us, I'm Mariama Diallo, and here is a quick recap of today's headlines. In Namibia, outgoing president wins $5 million Mo Ibrahim African Leadership Prize for good governance. In Guinea, Gekedu, the first district hit by Ebola, has been virus-free for about a month. In Zimbabwe, President Robert Mugabe holds a lavish 91st birthday at a luxury hotel in Victoria Falls, prompting questions about when he will leave office. Finally, in South Africa, Pantsola, a street dancing made popular in South African townships, aims to go professional through a new program called Street Beat. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. Now, did you get sucked into the drama over the dress this weekend? Well, cyberspace was being consumed by a debate over a picture of a dress that many claim is obviously white and gold, while others argue just as passionately it is black and blue. The hashtag the dress led trends on Twitter worldwide, boosted by a stream of tweets voicing support for either of the opposing camps. Now, the picture of the dress was uploaded on image-sharing website Tumblr by a user named Swiked. How we see the colors depend on how our brains perceive light hitting the retina. And just for the record, the dress is actually black and blue. Well, next up, a dress mystery of a different kind. The $150,000 Oscar gown worn by actress Lupita Nyong'o that was stolen last week was returned on Friday by the thief who tipped off celebrity news site TMZ.com after finding out that the pearls on the dress were fake. TMZ says the thief took the Calvin Klein dress from Nyong'o's hotel room after finding the door open. Now, the thief and others removed 2 pearls from the dress and took them to the garment district in downtown Los Angeles, where they were told they were not real. Now, the thief then took the dress back to the hotel and told TMZ it was in a garment bag inside a trash bag in a bathroom. What a crazy story. But one thing is clear, the most talked about red carpet look will be remembered for years to come. And that is not just because of the design. Well, and finally, as Berlin gets set to ban off-leash dogs from several popular sites, one restaurant is bucking the trend and opening its doors to its Furry Friends, located in a popular dog walking spot in the Grand World Forest. Both dogs and owners can stop by for a bite. The deluxe menu on offer from salmon to kangaroo and deer antlers. Will the restaurant scheme take off? We'll see. But after the city's new dog walking regulations unleashed a fury among pet owners, there are bound to be some who will go crazy for canine cuisine. And that is what is trending today. Well, it's time now for Monday Sports Report, and here's Sunny Young with the sunny side of sports with a cricket update. Hello, Sunny.
Hello, Vincent, and sporty greetings once again to our Africa 54 viewers. The Cricket World Cup resumes on Tuesday when South Africa plays Ireland in Canberra, Australia. The South Africans currently have 4 points from 3 matches, and they're second in the Pool B table behind unbeaten India. In action Sunday at the Cricket World Cup, South Africa's neighbor Zimbabwe lost to Pakistan by 20 runs. The final score from Brisbane Cricket Ground in Australia, Pakistan 235 for 7 in 50 overs, and Zimbabwe 219 for 49.4 overs. Pakistan's captain, Misbah-ul Haq, talks about his team's victory.
I think team fought really well, especially credit goes to the bowlers. They just kept the pressure, just kept taking wickets. That's the key in this World Cup. Even if you are just defending a low total, if you have the bowlers who could take wickets at different intervals, you could really just penetrate. And that's what especially the fast bowlers did today.
It was Pakistan's first win at the Cricket World Cup after 2 losses. Zimbabwe has 1 win and 3 losses. The African team will next play March 7th when they take on Ireland in Hobart, Australia. I'm VOA's Sunny Young, and that's the sunny side of sports. Vincent?
Well, thanks a lot, Sunny, and be sure to watch the sunny side of sports every Monday and Friday right here on Africa 54. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight at 1800 UTC. And in the morning today, Break Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching from all of us here in Washington. Have a good night. We are able to touch on things that are important to people on an everyday basis. Hello and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. In a lively half hour, news, sports, health, lifestyle information, comments from our viewers. Africa 54, the best for Africa, about Africa. Join us only on VOA.